So my name is Diana Lucaci. I'm the founder and CEO of True Impact. We are a brand strategy firm operating primarily within North America and Europe. We are using consumer neuroscience research to come up with brand strategies. Today we're going to talk about productivity by design, essentially. We're going to look at office productivity and how can you create brain-friendly environments. So this is a typical scene for many of you. This is, we're all familiar with the open concept environment. It's what most offices look like these days. It does, it has been so popular because it promotes better communication between workers. It is very cost effective. It's very flexible for people who work in shifts or travel often. And of course, there are better aesthetics because there are no walls. So there's no barriers, right? It provides this trendy look. However, there are many drawbacks to the open concept environment office. There are drawbacks to our productivity, to our ability to focus, and especially distractions, our ability to mitigate and to deal with the distractions that we're faced with every day. Specifically, research from the University of California, as well as Carnegie Mellon University, has found that every 4 minutes, a typical office worker will attend to an immediate work interruption. So these are not the interruptions that we're able to ignore. These are interactions and distractions that we are actually attending to, whether it is a phone notification, an email, people walking around talking loudly, or anything really. So this creates a very stressful work environment, and it translates into about 20% more errors being performed. This is because our cognitive ability and our memory is impacted by distractions in the workplace. So many brands are looking to understand how can you optimize productivity while also taking into account human well-being. When you figure this out, you can really create a space that works for people as well as companies and bottom lines. So we partnered with Plantronics. Plantronics is a leading electronics company, primarily specializing in producing audio communications equipment. Their solution is called Habitat Soundscaping, and this is a new approach that actually reduces the noise levels within open office environments. It reduces the noise by using soothing nature sounds to mask human speech. So to create a multi-sensory experience, Habitat Soundscaping is also paired with congruent digital or physical sites, such as cloud images on a digital monitor or a real-life waterfall. What this looks like, you can see it highlighted right here. You can see a waterfall feature in the middle of the room. You can see behind the team working a digital image of nature as well as skylights. What's interesting in the way that this works is that in the ceiling, there is a microphone that picks up on the noise levels in an area, and speakers are automatically calibrated to then produce the right ambient sound so that it masks the intensity of human speech in that area, creating a more soothing work environment for the rest of the people in the office. So it's a more intelligent way to design the office and to create a more, human-friendly space. What we did is to understand this a little bit better, to understand how can you impact productivity, but also, human and wellness. We employed neuromarketing research techniques. We looked at specifically tools coming from neuroscience to let us know how people are actually feeling while they're performing different tasks in these environments. The tool you see here is called an EEG, or electroencephalogram. The tool has been around for possibly almost 100 years at this point, but what we have today is a very portable device that is wireless and very comfortable to wear as well. Now, EEGs come in many shapes and sizes, and there are good EEGs and bad EEGs depending on your application, right? So this is an academic grade, a high grade EEG equipment that we use, and it lets us know what is the brain activity. It specifically translates the data from the surface of the brain into insights about what people feel is motivating. What are they drawn to? What are they really repelled by? It lets us know what people find to be confusing. So if something is difficult to understand or you require more brain power literally to make sense of it, we can see that with this device. If something is exciting or if it's kind of maybe boring a little bit, that is also measurable through the use of heart rate variability, indicating levels of arousal. So very interesting stuff. Using EEG, you can see how people feel in the moment without asking any questions. And when you're looking at the spectrum of non-conscious measurement, there are biometrics, neurometrics, and when you combine that with spoken, survey responses, then you really have a full picture of what people are feeling. So for example, you would take, if you're doing a comprehensive study, you can look at, where are people looking using eye tracking, and then how are they feeling using a tool like this, and ultimately finishing up with a survey. And in many cases, this is what we do to get that big picture and to get that understanding between, are people saying what they feel, and ultimately, are they doing what they said they're going to be doing, right? Many times in many studies, we find that there are gaps between what people say and how they truly feel, and furthermore, between what they do and what they said they're going to do. So non-conscious measurement, at the end of the day, is a critical tool in completing a brand's understanding of the customer, and specifically being able to be intentional with the way you create your marketing communications so that they do reach that audience and they're perceived as relevant and they drive that action. So using non-conscious measurement devices, we looked at different levels of emotional intensity, at motivation, and then we analyzed this data. Now, when you look at neuroscience data, I just have to mention one quick thing. Any differences between 2 to 5% are actually considered statistically significant. So unlike other traditional research methods, when we see a small difference in the brain, it actually translates into a much larger effect down the line when we're looking at verbal research and so on. So we're looking for small differences, but those are very, very meaningful. So within the context of our pilot study, what we did is we had a small group of people do 2 tasks. One task was around creativity. Are you able to be creative? Are you able to, in this case, produce an essay that contains, a high quality, of words, a higher reading level, and so on? Are you able to produce an essay that is imaginative? Specifically, we asked people to describe a personal event, maybe an item, a relationship, and context of some imagined conditions. So this task was really telling us what's going to be the quality of their writing, how creative are people able to be. The next task was about productivity. So this is purely how fast are you able to type a passage detailing some work, detailing names, dates, locations, agendas, and so on. So this has to do with how productive can you be when you're simply translating data. We looked at many different things. So I already spoke about neurometrics. Some of the neurometrics that I'm going to talk about are highlighted here, such as motivation, cognitive load. There's alertness as well, and many others that we measure within our neuroscience department. Biometrics as well that we measured include heart rate variability. We looked at the quality of the writing, the descriptiveness, rare words, number of filler words, reading level, information density, a lot of interesting things there. Efficiency, this has to do with productivity. Is the speed high enough? Is the translation of the copy accurate, and so on? And ultimately, we asked them in an interview after the fact what people are able to recall. So I'm going to talk about only a few metrics today. However, I do invite you to reach out to me directly, to my email maybe, diana.lucacci@trueimpact.ca. I'd be happy to share with you the full case study that looks at all of these metrics in a little bit more detail. So these were the 2 tasks, and we asked people to perform these tasks in an office. However, to create an office environment in a controlled manner was quite difficult. So we employed Harvard sentences. And this is a collection of phonetically balanced phrases that reliably replicates English speech on a small scale. So it sounds just like people having a very basic, simple conversation in the background. This is what all the writing in the background here is all about. So within these conditions, one being without soundscaping, just office noise provided by Harvard sentences, and then a condition with soundscaping where you have that background noise, but also the additional soundscaping elements like the digital screen, the waterfall, and so on. We wanted to understand the differences that soundscaping can actually create within that open concept environment. What we found was very interesting. What was kind of expected was to see that when you have this effect, the soundscaping effect, we see that this provides an improvement in the quality of work. So specifically, what we learned is that when people are situated near a digital skylight, where perhaps they see clouds or trees, or there is the theme of nature all around them, we see an ease in comprehension. And this is represented by the cognitive load metric. So the differences here being 69 and between with the soundscaping condition and the condition without soundscaping, the differences are pretty big when it comes to neurometrics. It indicates that a task is easier for a person to perform. Cognitive load has a bit of a Goldilocks zone where if something is too difficult to understand, people will get irritated. If something is too easy to understand, we see people becoming bored. So this is right within that middle space. And it actually shows us that there's an ease in comprehension, right? And this has been correlated with an improvement in the overall quality of the essay. There are more rare words used. Specifically, these are words that are outside of the 5,000 most frequently used words in the English language. So there's an improvement in the number of rare words used in the essay task. And also the memory has been improved as well when the soundscaping was on, because people are able to focus on the task, and also comprehension is easier as well. The other benefit that we noticed as it relates to the work directly is that when people were near a waterfall, so this is a visual physical waterfall, there is an increase in the levels of motivation, a pretty high increase, a 5% increase. So what this means is, imagine you are, in nature by a waterfall, and you're asked, and you're producing, let's say, you're writing a poem or you're writing an essay. The experience is a lot more pleasant. And furthermore, as a result of the brain enjoying it more, you can see an improvement in the descriptive style. So this is a higher proportion of the language in the essay that was dedicated to adjectives and adverbs. So when you're doing creative work, this is very important. When you're trying to be productive, being near nature elements has been shown to help drive that productivity as well as mental well-being. So this is not new, but what we are able to do here is we're able to take a typical open office environment and learn how you can actually create a humanized environment that promotes creativity and productivity. And it all begins with human understanding, meaning putting people first. So I would like to, instill this idea and inspire everyone listening to this that perhaps it's time to design for our biology, not so much our technology necessarily. We learned that although open office concepts are here to stay, there are measures that we can take to improve well-being and productivity. And what matters is that when you do this, when you improve mental states, this actually translates into immediate results, better quality of work. So at the end of the day, it turns out that putting people first actually makes a big difference. Thank you so much for your attention, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Diana. That was great. And we've got one question already. No, we now have two. So let's go straight to the list. Diana, what suggestion would you have to provide a retailer with respect to better design in stores, if any, following the result of these sort of tests? So I mean, maybe
Yes.
we ought to think about two types of retailer as well. So a
Mhm.
grocery store where you're going through doing a lot of stuff, but maybe also a clothing store where you're wanting to spend some time and talk to the assistant.
Yes, exactly. So we did we together with CBC Marketplace, we shot an episode on this. It's called Retailer Tricks. You can Google it. So CBC Marketplace Retailer Tricks. What we did is we designed a grocery store so that it is easier for people to navigate. The results of this study tie into the findings of that experiment as well, which is designed for biology to understand the human being living and navigating that space and create the space so that there are wider areas for people to pass through, that the temperature and music level is at the right optimal level, the lighting is not too intense, digital screens need to be placed at a height that is a typical eye level height with most people as they're navigating the space, not very high up, which is where they usually are. If you want people to stay in your space, let's say, and in your environment to spend more time, use soothing music. Have music that is gentle and slow, and that does not, inspire people to rush through the space. If you're trying to create more engagement with your brand, make sure you have brand ambassadors that are there to offer samples, to offer guidance, and so on. So I think there are many things a retailer can do, and we certainly have done a lot of work with CPG and retail brands that we can share some best practices around what we've seen has worked. But essentially, when you're starting to think about the human being, not just as data, but as a person with, and you understand automatic reactions to the stimulus you create around them, you see that the customer experience is not out there in the world. It's actually, and I'm pointing to my head, it's actually up here between our ears, right? So when you start understanding that, you can start optimizing little by little and seeing the improvements, the bottom line improvements at the end of the month.
Now, compared with sort of a standard staff satisfaction survey, this is a more expensive process. So how does that work out? Is it something that people do once in a while, or can they apply the learnings from one office and apply it to lots of offices?
The study is so neuromarketing research is no longer expensive. It is on par with survey research. To give to give rounded figures, you can get a neuromarketing study for under $15,000 these days, sometimes even under 10,000, and solutions can start at $400. So it is not something that is a selective, once in a while thing to do. I think what's more important is that you do it right, that you use tools that measure the full brain, not just a single point on the brain, that you use neurometrics combined with biometrics as well, and you understand the relationship. And furthermore, that you work with a partner who can interpret the data for you and tie it in with your prediction of customer behavior later on. Because a neural correlate that you can discover in-house helps you get closer to predicting what that final sales figure will be next quarter, next year. So it's really about using neuroscience, which is no longer, which is very affordable, but it's using it within your business context to help you get to the metrics that you're aiming for.
So thank you so much, Diana.
My pleasure. Thank you.